Hey, what's up, Closer to Fam, and welcome back to this timeline. But first, a quick recap. When we last left off, our heroes had enjoyed 7 years of peace before an evil loomed once again. During the 25th World Martial Arts Tournament, they were wished away to defeat an ancient evil, and with the sacrifice of Tien and Vegeta, whose dark impulses had caused them to relapse into evil, they were successful. And we return to this story, now. As the dust of the amazingly powerful final explosion from Tien and Vegeta settled, Piccolo, Goku, and some of the other Z fighters returned to see the damage of the blast. The radius was expansive, and the island itself had been scorched and leveled to the point of being a few inches underwater now. And the area was still steamy from all the evaporated water and moisture. There were absolutely no traces of Majin Buu left. Goku whistles at the damage that had been done, but seeing as the danger was avoided now, he decided it was best to go out and gather the Dragon Balls to revive Tien, Vegeta, and Yamcha, and anyone else who could have been hurt during all this. Hearing his plan, Krillin is a bit hesitant about reviving the two formerly possessed fighters, but in a rare showing of seriousness from Goku, he explains that the two had saved the day and countless lives through their sacrifice. They made a mistake, yes, but they had to be given a second chance, especially after this. He was willing to bet they were sent to Otherworld and not Hell, in fact, though if you're being honest with himself, that probably was untrue. Krillin accepts his argument reluctantly and holds his tongue as the Dragon Balls are gathered. Vegeta, Tien, and Yamcha are revived after a bit, and some explanation to everyone who had been left at the tournament arena had to be given about what had actually happened. Once this is done, Tien bows and pushes his face onto the ground as he begs Yamcha and the others for their forgiveness, especially the children. Almost everyone doesn't really know how to react to this, but Yamcha sighs as his easygoing attitude causes him to forgive his friend almost instantly. He understands feeling inadequate, and as such, he isn't that mad at him, and he knows that can really bother and eat away at you. Then, seeing how Vegeta is just blushing and crossing his arms while looking indignantly, Tien punches him in the side and tells him to apologize as well. Vegeta growls before unfolding his arms and bowing his head at the very least, and he also gives a very curt apology as well. It seemed like the two of them had talked about apologizing while in Otherworld. Goku chuckles at the annex, and everyone else seeing that Vegeta of all people is apologizing are a bit more keen to forgive the man. It'll be about as fast as they did in canon at the very least, but they will be forgiving him. Goku, for one, is very happy to see that Tien and Vegeta have made amends and that Yamcha and somewhat Krillin have forgiven each other. It seems like everything's going to be okay now. So, with that, he challenges them all to a fight. The tournament had been ruined for them by Babidi's plot, but right now, he wanted to test them all, each one of them. Gohan too. He was really only knocked out after challenging Majin Buu, and Kibito had easily been able to fix them all up, and maybe get him a Zenkai boost as well. Actually, Goku was so excited, he even wanted to take on the kids. This makes Goten very excited to fight his dad, as well as exciting the young martial artist Buri. Goku powers up to Super Saiyan and tells them all to come at him. The adult Z fighters wouldn't waste any time and rush in for the battle, with the children zooming in soon after them. The battle raged on for a while, with Goku treating this more as training for the others and just enjoying the fight as a whole. As their powers ramped up to try and match what he was at, so did his, until he was ready to unveil a brand new form of Super Saiyan that shook the world. When fully transformed, Goku was definitely stronger than Majin Buu, and those fighting him had felt their own abilities and strength grow and multiply from the fierce battle. When all was said and done, Vegeta and Gohan were really the only ones with enough energy to stand on their own 2 feet, but even they were drained of ki. Goku knows that he couldn't think of a better way to use up the rest of the energy he had for his 24 hours on Earth. As that energy begins to dissipate and he feels himself being pulled back to the Otherworld, he says his goodbyes to everyone and bids them farewell. And so, the status quo returns. But over time, there will be some major changes. The most jarring of which is the fact that Tien makes the decision to become human again. Whereas Yamcha and Krillin felt their Saiyan biology had served to make them better men by making them more driven and confident, Tien felt it had greatly amplified his more negative qualities, like his jealousy, anger, and battle lust. Even Vegeta hadn't gained complete control over his darker impulses, and he's been a Saiyan his entire life. Remember that after renouncing the Crane School and the life of an assassin, Tien spends a lot of the King Piccolo arc in a state of remorse and wanting to redeem himself. But in that arc, he never killed one of his best friends, or worse, threatened his other best friend's child. So turn the dial of that arc up to about a 13, and then you'll see where Tien's psyche is in terms of remorse. Aside from this, just about all the Z fighters begin to take their training much more seriously. Mostly Yamcha and Krillin do this. They realize they are wasting their potential as Saiyans by not keeping their training up to a more intense degree, and they begin to do so way more. In the past 7 years, their families and children had eaten up a ton of their time, but with the children now being older and somewhat independent, that draw was significantly lessened. And for Krillin, he always had 17 and 18 around for his spar, or even to take care of Marin if need be, but they're not too gung-ho about that all the time. As for Yamcha, he actually had a few options, but he could honestly pay Videl to babysit Kurizu. She's a high schooler, but with her dad being so rich, this means she didn't really have to do this for money, but more to spend time with the younger girl. I could really see the two of them having a sisterly bond. Vegeta was always going to keep up his training, but now it appears that he and Tien have formed a bond that has persisted even after Tien becomes human again. This actually means that they regularly begin to train together. They get about as close to friends as Vegeta can really get with someone, and their rivalry had only gotten stronger, yet more positive. Tien being human would slow his growth as opposed to Vegeta's, but his skill and technique usually made up for this. And as time passed on with these changes, Tien feels a lot more at peace with himself. Gohan would also continue his training, and would actually ramp it up a lot after his loss to Majin Buu. And Videl, who he had actually started to full on date at this time, was very happy to help him do that. And his and her superhero careers are much more ramped up in this timeline because of this. Trunks is finally able to begin hanging out with Goten and the girls, and all the kids do keep up their training to a pretty decent degree. This is mostly due to Buri, where Trunks and Goten would usually begin to lose a bit of interest in fighting at this time. Buri still holds a lot of love for the martial arts, as is how her family bonds, and with Tien starting his dojo, with a very helpful endorsement from Mr. Satan as a favor to Yamcha and his family, she had become a teaching assistant in that dojo. So she was definitely not going to fall out of love with fighting anytime soon. Buri also develops a more heated rivalry with Trunks, which she isn't really aware of that is actually a crush, while Launch and Bulma find it really funny, as that's how Launch used to act with Tien years ago. The other kids just pretty much enjoy life as kids. About 3 years down the line from here, and Gohan finally proposes to Videl. In reaction to this, Chi-Chi had already felt that Goku should have returned to life, and now she's very gung-ho about him coming back to life. She gets in contact with King Kai and begins to nag the entire afterlife about Goku coming back to life to see his son get married. It finally gets so annoying that Goku and Piccolo are basically evicted from King Kai's planet and forced to return to life. And from there, he does start his farming business, and it isn't too rare to see him sneak off to King Kai's for a quick workout sometimes. So all in all, life was good, but it was also a bit boring. 1 year later, and on the day of Bulma's birthday party, something actually does happen. On a mysterious world, an alarm of some sorts goes off and rouses an eccentric yet powerful creature from his slumber. After going through his morning routine, he sits down to have a meal with his attendant and tells him about a premonition he's had. He struggles to find a term that he knows. He knows what he's trying to say, a super Sai, before his attendant cuts him off and says, Super Saiyan God. The deity cheers at this and claims that that is exactly what he was trying to say. In response to his god, the angel uses his staff to show him the fight between Gohan and Cell, and explains that a Super Saiyan God awoke 11 years ago by accident, and the supposed deity never exhibited the power again. Hearing that, Beerus freaks out and begins to yell and berate Whis for not waking him up earlier, and pouts as he's missed the Super Saiyan God. Whis rolls his eyes, as waking him would have just resulted in a cranky god that he would have to clean up after, and he never saw the Saiyans as interesting enough to go and investigate them. That said, he tells Beerus that the Saiyan God resides on Earth, and Beerus instantly says to set course for the planet, and Whis goes off to make a lunch for the trip. On the world of the Kais, Kibito and Shin realize that Beerus has woken up, and that he's on the move towards the Earth. They relay this information to King Kai, who is currently hosting Goku during one of his workout sessions. In turn, he decides to warn Prince Vegeta, hoping he'll be the least likely person to piss the God of Destruction off. He's also going to try and keep Goku here on his planet to keep him away from Beerus, but that'll be kinda difficult. Luckily for him, if and when Goku hears him, Beerus won't be showing up on King Kai's planet, so he can probably make up a lie and appease Goku's curiosity at some point. When King Kai finishes his message to Vegeta, he is actually shocked at the name Beerus and accidentally stops in the middle of his sparring match with Tien. The three-eyed human lands an open shot to the solar plexus and doubles Vegeta over. Once getting his breath back, Vegeta explains the situation to Tien, and the two warriors go out to try and find the god to make sure that nothing too bad happens. This would however go a lot like in canon, with Vegeta realizing who Beerus is, and Bulma arriving to invite the god to the festivities. As soon as Whis and Beerus see Gohan, they make a beeline to him and express interest and ask him about the Super Saiyan God transformation and how he did it, which just confuses him. That is until they get a whiff of the food and this distracts them, so they begin to eat while also trying to do their investigation, but their priorities are about 95% food and 5% Super Saiyan God. Beyond that, a lot of their questions are inaudible because their mouths are full. Tien and Vegeta try to keep everyone in line around Beerus and Whis, and Tien actually has a very good idea and asks for the help of Buri and Kurizu to keep Goten, Trunks, and Marin from getting too rowdy during the party. Nothing in this timeline has changed for the Pilaf gang, so I do feel like they would be around, but thankfully Kurizu is also there, which means they either get chased off or she keeps them in line really easily. I could even see Kurizu asking Chi-Chi for help and making sure everyone is behaving, so the party goers are pretty well behaved thanks to this team keeping them in line. That said, Gohan's interest is piqued when he hears about a new type of Super Saiyan transformation, and he actually asks Piccolo if he knows anything about this, which is pretty much squat nothing. Piccolo thinks back to the Cell games and how he and Goku had been really curious as well as to what Gohan had used to defeat Cell, and so he telepathically contacts Goku, reminding him about Cell's defeat and their little investigation into what Gohan had become. Thankfully for King Kai, Piccolo doesn't mention Beerus as he didn't seem too relevant in the situation. He and Gohan were just brainiacs and they were genuinely curious about what Super Saiyan God might have been. Goku remembers that he did do some asking around, but nobody had much to tell him about the power Gohan had used. One warrior had suggested speaking to other Saiyans in Otherworld, but those would be in extremely short supply. He had asked King Yima about this, but the ogre explained it may take a while of looking back through his pages to see what might have happened. It'd been 11 years now, so he'd maybe found something or he'd maybe forgotten. And with that, the Saiyan put 2 fingers to his forehead and disappeared from the world of King Kai and in front of King Yima, asking his question once again and holding up the line. Yima sighs at the hero and explains that he had an intern look into the matter and there were only a few pure-hearted Saiyans to end up in Otherworld, but most did not keep their bodies. Only 6 had ever done so before Goku himself. He then has one of his interns take Goku to meet these Saiyans. Back at the party, things couldn't be going smoother. Because Yamcha and Krillin were both Saiyans in this timeline and had the appetites of Saiyans, this meant that Bulma had to account for this when she was hiring the catering for the party. So there was literally tons of food to go around. This means that Beerus and Whis were really busy eating and barely got to talk to Gohan too much. But when they finally get around to trying every dish at the party, Beerus samples the sweet dessert pudding and nearly cries in happiness from it. With that done, his expedition of flavor is finished, and with a full and bloated belly, he tells Whis to pack up his go plate, and he reveals his real reason for being here as he challenges Gohan to a fight. Though Gohan had kept up his training, he still isn't all fight like his dad, and so he actually declines this and explains that he really doesn't know about all this God stuff, and he isn't interested in fighting anyone right now. Vegeta and Tien get visibly nervous hearing this and begin trying to convince Gohan to spar a couple rounds with the cat. Beerus simply sighs and calmly explains that in that case, he'd have to destroy the planet. Gohan grows a bit more agitated at hearing this and reiterates that he has no idea what Beerus is talking about and he doesn't want to fight. At being refused once again, the God of Destruction is growing angrier and angrier, making Tien and Vegeta even more anxious, but there is nothing they can really do about this. Trying to break the tension or genuinely wanting to fight the cat, the drunken world champ Hercule decides if the cat wants a fight, then he'll give him one he'll never forget. He then gets into his stance before throwing his patented dynamite kick directly into Beerus' face. The god is not amused. He simply taps Hercule with a claw and the man turns into lifeless dust. The entire party freezes. Videl lets out a horrified gasp and covers her mouth as tears begin to flow freely. She then roars and rushes at Beerus for revenge, only to be slapped out of the way and knocked unconscious, hitting the ground hard. The boat then begins to shake, as Gohan feels a greater rage than he has ever felt at any point in time before. To kill his father-in-law in front of him and hurt his wife was unforgivable. Super Saiyan and Super Saiyan 2 are achieved in an instant, but his anger continued to make his power skyrocket to heights even the extremely powerful Goku hadn't yet reached, even with his Super Saiyan 3 transformation and Otherworld training. Through pure, unadulterated rage, Gohan had become the most powerful warrior the Earth had ever seen, other than the god standing across from him. He rams into Beerus and the two fly off of the ship and begin making shockwaves as they battle above the water, with Gohan doing much better than Vegeta would do in this same fight in canon, before he too is beaten down and slammed into the ship. Seeing Gohan's courage, Vegeta and Tien say the hell with it, and the rest of the party goers capable of fighting rush the cat god and are taken out with less effort than Whis is taking to lift his fork. Piccolo is many leagues beyond his canon version at this point, as are some of the others, but Beerus' league is that of a god, and he demonstrates this to devastating effectiveness. With everyone defeated so easily, Buri asks if the kid should try the fusion technique that Goten's father had shown him, as Gohan had shown the others as a cool technique. But Piccolo tells her to not bother with it. This guy was something else, and this power was like nothing they'd ever seen before. He then gets in telepathic contact with Goku and tells him to get back to Earth right now. Goku is about to tell him that he found out about the Super Saiyan God, but Piccolo tells him to hurry to Earth and cuts him off. After having the spit knocked out of his mouth, Gohan is still mad, but he's thinking a bit more clearly and asks Bulma if he can use the Dragon Balls to summon Shenron and ask him about a Super Saiyan God. She is going to give him the go-ahead, but Goku appears by his side and explains that there's no need for that. He's learned the way to create a Super Saiyan God from an old Saiyan by the name of Yamoshi. Goku then convinces Beerus to give him a second as he explains to everyone how the Super Saiyan God ritual works, and then everyone realizes how Gohan actually defeated Cell. But now, with Goku having returned, Gohan thinks he should be one to fight Beerus as he'd have the best chance of defeating him, but both Goku and Beerus turn down the idea. Goku, because after hearing about Super Saiyan God, he isn't interested in a power he has to borrow from others, and Beerus explains that he is much more interested in fighting the Hybrid Saiyan than his father, especially after that showing of great rage, but Beerus doesn't verbally state this. But to get the best challenge possible, he plans to push the boy's anger to an even greater height than he just did. Luckily, in this timeline, there are many more pure-hearted Saiyans than just 5, so whatever the combination, it doesn't really matter. The ritual is achieved and Gohan is able to become a Super Saiyan God once again. Though this time, because the ritual was done the right way and with everyone knowing what they were doing, it's a much more stable transformation. I also want to state that I know that some people think the God ritual wouldn't work on Hybrid Saiyans. I want to counter that statement by saying, number 1, there's no canonical evidence or statement to support that idea, and number 2, if the Hybrid Saiyans can't achieve Super Saiyan God through the ritual, then they likely wouldn't be able to be counted in the 5 Saiyans needed to complete the ritual either. Also, I won't be using traditional power levels for these characters beyond this point. Instead, I will use a similar scaling method to Toriyama's Goku is a 6, Beerus is a 10, and Whis is a 15 statement. And since nothing in this timeline has changed Beerus, he remains as a 10, while Gohan hasn't gotten to the same level of strength as the canon version of Goku had at this point. So without his rage, his base god power is a 4. And if you'd like that quote cited, I will leave a link to the Kanzenshu article with the translations in the description below. Now, Beerus starts off the battle a lot like he did with Goku in their canon battle, trying to train and kind of coach Gohan on how to use this new and extreme power. But he is much more taunting about the situation than he was in canon. He is trying to coax as much power out of Gohan through anger as he possibly can, and it is working to an extent as the Hybrid Saiyan hauls off and punches him hard enough that even the Kais are scared that the universe might tear itself apart. The others try to follow the battle, but it's very hard to keep up with, and Goku is now regretting not trying to fight Beerus beforehand just to see what the cat was capable of, but it was an emergency. Beerus reiterates that he'd be destroying this planet if he won, and in response, Gohan is enraged at how stupid this fight is. With his rage, I actually place Gohan at a 6, and he actually lands some decent hits on the God of Destruction. But this doesn't last too long, and soon as Goku does in canon, Gohan falls out of the God transformation. As soon as this happens, he takes a hard hit from Beerus and transforms into a Super Saiyan 2. Meanwhile, Krillin tells Yamcha they should help as this was for the safety of Earth, and so they gather the kids, and surprisingly, Pizza, who reveals she's pregnant with her and Yamcha's next child. The ritual is completed one after another, and 2 new Saiyan gods arrive to give the now mere Super Saiyan 2 Gohan their aid. I will place Yamcha and Krillin at a 3, but their martial arts mastery, different techniques, and great teamwork allows them to really entertain Beerus. Yamcha destroys his multiple Cataclysm orbs with his Spirit Ball, making them detonate on top of Beerus. Krillin tries to blind him, but Beerus is actually able to fight with his eyes closed. Not perfectly, but decently enough to where he's not being hit too much and he's delivering some pretty good attacks. Initially, Beerus was annoyed by the interference, but this was actually fun and gave Beerus an idea. There were more Saiyans down there. And so, he orders the other 2 adult Saiyans to complete the ritual as well and come and fight him. While this happens, Beerus adds to the tension by forming a huge blast over his head that Gohan, Krillin, and Yamcha know for a fact they won't be able to stop, but they're going to try and do so anyway. Goku and Vegeta scramble to complete the ritual, putting their pride away for a second. While watching this, Tien, for a second, regrets becoming human once again, as he feels extremely useless right now. Beerus acts as a ticking bomb by making the huge orb grow every second he waits, as Vegeta finishes the ritual and flies up to attack the god. He then smirks and throws the massive spear of destructive energy towards the earth. Gohan, Krillin, Yamcha, and Vegeta struggle to push back the massive orb of destruction, but this seems nearly impossible. Everyone calls out to their saviors as Goku completes his ritual and flies up to help as well, with Videl calling to Gohan that he can't let their child die before it's even born. Gohan's eyes shoot open and he's instantly re-energized. His godhood reactivates and he yells out to his father and friends that they had to make one good push as a team. The 5 gods all agree to this, even Vegeta, who typically would not do something like this. The 5 gods then begin to charge up their individual attacks. For Goku, Yamcha, and Krillin, it was their first ever godly Kamehameha. For Vegeta, a godly Final Flash, and for Gohan, it was a massive anger and love-fueled God Masenko. These 5 attacks combined and were actually able to push back Beerus' orb back onto the cat himself. This causes the God of Destruction to be pushed back with enough force to go careening into the sky, upper atmosphere, and out of sight. And then, it got quiet. Everyone waits with bated breath as Yamcha and Krillin can't maintain their God forms any longer, and the seconds tick by. But Beerus still wasn't back. Whis flies up and explains that Beerus seemed to have fallen asleep during their attack as he must be pretty tired. He carries his and Beerus' bento boxes and bids everyone farewell as he goes to retrieve the god and return to their home. This was definitely a fight that would satisfy the God of Destruction. Using his staff, he taps on the ground and is able to reverse Beerus' killing of Hercule, bringing him back to life. He and Beerus then disappear and everyone sighs in relief. That is until Goku starts up another fight with everyone while he still has his god powers. Battling against Goku is easier than Beerus, but the God Key seems to awaken something in all of them and they end up being able to call on the power of God at will. Back on Beerus' planet, the cat stops feigning being asleep and chows down on his bento box, while he and Whis talk about how smart it was to send Hercule away and make it seem as if he killed him to make Gohan mad. He decides he'll take a quick nap for about a year and return to the Earth. These Saiyans were a real hoot, and their food was incredible. But that plus Ultra fans will all be leaving this story off for right now. So just a few quick things. Number 1, I know people won't love the whole Tien becoming human again thing. Trust me, he's going through a character arc just like everyone else in this story, and he will not become irrelevant. Number 2, did you enjoy this minimalist style of editing for this video? It saves me some time while editing, so I want to know if you guys enjoy it, because if you do, I might continue to do this, and if you don't, I'll go back to my old style. There will be a poll in the icon for you guys to vote on. Number 3, thank you guys for all the creative feedback on part 1.5 of this story. It may not seem like it in this part, but that is really going to inform how I use the kids in this scenario going forward. Let me know how you like this video in the comment section, suggest your own what ifs, and please leave a like if you did enjoy the video. Subscribe as well, and please hit the notification bell. You should also go and follow me on my social media links posted in the description below. And before we go, a shout out to my patrons in the Hero tier, Lone Wolf McQuaid, Zaya Returns, and Treb. In Shinobi tier, Pizza 15X, and in Z Warrior tier, Knuckles OX. And in the Beyond tier, Robert Smith and Xander Tribdy. These guys go beyond plus Ultra to support the channel directly, and it means the world. Please consider joining them by supporting Plus Ultraman on Patreon. And with that said, nothing left to do but tell you guys to take care of yourselves and always go beyond plus Ultra. See you guys next time.